My name is Lance Conrad, and I'm an author. I write books for a living. I went from crawling to sprinting. Now I could run through not just one world, but many. Live not just one life, but hundreds.
He wants to marry her. He'll have to come to Tetron.
And how about a nice spoiled cousin who bullies him all the time, right? What if these two characters fell in love? What if these two characters fought to the death? Show me him standing up against an entire army single-handed and drove most of the race before hopping out to run the last. That's a little bit different. True story, by the way. Somebody went on a trip or somebody came to town. There's your plots. They took that big old forehead and just crashed every brick, board, and brother in the house. Let me tell you a story.
Welcome, everybody. It is good to be here. Welcome to Story Stream, where we tell stories from history because they are fun. And today we are talking about athletes in history. And I am, of course, here with Mike Forsyth, a decent athlete in his own right, actually. What is your sport of choice, Mike?
My sport of choice is these days anyway, is the Scottish Highland Games.
Nice.
It is a
It's the one where you throw all the boulders and telephone
yeah,
poles
you're
and stuff,
throwing
right?
rocks and weights and telephone poles and
Rocks and trees
hammers,
and stuff.
you know, heavy things of various descriptions.
Now, I've actually seen you throw, and you do pretty well.
Thank you.
I do feel like bringing up your older brother, though.
If we must.
Just by sheer mass, I think we must.
Oh boy, he does have a certain gravity to him, doesn't he?
The guy's huge.
Yeah. The brother to which he refers is John Forsyth, world amateur champion of the Scottish Highland Games in 2017, I want to say.
That sounds right.
Something like that.
Yep.
6'7", 320-ish.
Hasn't eaten a
dude.
vegetable in years.
I consider myself a fairly big dude, but yeah, I am not the big one at family events.
Yeah. When
I
Mike
will-
is the little guy, you know it's a pretty big clan.
Yeah.
Now, I mostly just have to bring that up because, yeah, that there is a connection here. And yeah, I was world champion, and that's something worth bringing up. Though generally, in this segment, we don't usually talk about living people. It's never been an official thing, but I'll admit, it kind of makes me uncomfortable. Because living people aren't done yet. Either with the good or the bad. Right?
That's fair.
If you jump in at the wrong time, you kind of end up looking stupid later, you know? Like
Yes, that's a real possibility.
like Lance Armstrong. I'm sorry. I mean, I'd still
Yeah.
respect the guy, but yeah, like, you know, if you jump in at the wrong point, things get just a little bit messy. And so, by far and away, we will be talking about dead athletes, dead people. Now, that is not to take away from today's athletes, the living. There are some incredible athletes out there who I have immense respect for. We just won't be talking about them on this show, at least on story streams. Though there will be an exception. I am going to mention a living athlete today.
Oh, really?
Yep. Or another living athlete, since I've already mentioned Mike and his brother.
Who I notice you did not include in the great athletes. Very hurtful.
Sorry. So who do we have? Who, in fact, going from there, who is our most dead athlete that we can come up with here?
So, speaking of very dead athletes.
Very dead athletes.
And people that make me feel very, very small.
That's fair.
We are going to the 6th century BC.
Oh, dang.
To Milo of Croton.
Oh, Milo!
Milo, who is a big boy.
How big we
to say
talking?
the very least. We don't have any hard numbers, but I will tell you some stories, and you decide.
Okay.
First story about Milo is he is a young man, 15, 16 years old. He decides that he wants to be a wrestler. 'Cause
Noble profession.
yeah, and this is like the height of the Olympic Games and everything. So he decides that he wants to be a wrestler. So his dad gives him a calf, right? Little baby cow, and tells him to take this cow, put it on his shoulders, and take it for a walk every day without fail. And Milo does so. Every day,
All right.
throws the calf on his shoulders, takes a walk.
I've been around cows. After about a year, that gets problematic.
Yes. He does this every day, and every day that calf gets a little bit bigger. And Milo gets a little bit bigger. And the calf gets a little bit bigger, and Milo gets a little bit bigger. Until eventually, 2 years later, young Milo is carrying around upwards of 1,000 pounds on his shoulders every day.
It's quite the weighted carry there.
He's a big boy.
Yes, seeing that.
This story may be an exaggeration. It is possible that he started but bailed before the cow got that big. But what we do know for sure is that somewhere between the ages of 17 and 20, he goes to the Olympics and he wins.
Wow.
Wins the Olympic wreath at as young as 17 years old, not older than 20. So already he is a big boy. And it is worth noting that there were no weight divisions.
Oh. So this was it is hard to imagine a 18-year-old kid going up against all weight divisions.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of these people would have been soldiers, and competing for years. And so, okay.
And just in general, you get stronger. I mean, on a pound for pound basis, you get stronger as you get older.
Right.
Right? As you get older, you tend to have less muscle mass, but pound for pound, you're stronger the older you get. This kid is as young as 17 years old, and he's going against really big, really strong guys from all over Greece, and he wins.
Okay.
4 years later, he comes back after competing on the rest of the circuit. He comes back, wins again.
So not a fluke the first time. This
Not
guy
a fluke
really
the first
is
time.
that big and scary.
He really is that big and scary. 4 years later, 28 or so, comes back and wins again.
Did they run it the same way where the Olympics every 4 years?
The Olympics are every 4 years, and you've got other smaller games every 6 months.
Okay. All right. So at this point, he's...
Or no, not every 2 years. Yeah, okay. Not every 6 months. You've got the Olympics every 4 years, and then the year after the Olympics, you have a game, and then 2 years after that, you have one, and then after that, you've got a different one in 2 years. They've got this whole circuit of different Olympics-like games, and he's just going around mopping them all up.
Nice.
Right? By the time that he's in his late 20s, it's hard to find an opponent because people don't want to step into the ring with this man because he's just getting bigger and bigger and stronger and making more and more of a name for himself. He ends up coming back to the Olympics and winning 6 times.
Holy smokes. So every 4 years. So that's over a period of 24 years.
That's over a period of 24 years without a loss. Without a single loss. And that's including all of the intermediate in-between games that were going on in the intervening years. He doesn't lose once.
Yeah, that's incredibly intimidating.
Yeah. And he's developing this legend around himself.
Yeah.
because he's gotten big enough that people believe the story of him carrying around a bull on his shoulders. Possibly because he reenacted it at one of these games, throws, according to one source, it was a 4-year-old ox.
Oh.
So fully grown, like, real big animal, upwards of 1,500 pounds, throwing it on his shoulders, carrying it around the arena, throwing it down, killing it with a single punch, slaughtering it and eating it in front of the crowd.
I'm not sure which of those events I would have found most intimidating.
By some accounts, he ate upwards of 40 pounds of meat and bread a day.
Man, that I'm sorry, Mike. I can't connect to that statistic. I cannot even picture that.
So think of a quarter pounder.
Right, so 160 of those?
160 of those.
Yeah, see, I can't even fathom that.
So 50 some odd per meal, something like that. Again, probably an exaggeration.
But still,
probably.
I know that anytime you get stories that old, it's been turned around 10 ways to Sunday. But just the hard facts of him winning 6 Olympics, like, that's not an exaggeration. That would be like part of their official record, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, that all by itself, I think, validates just the freakish strength and size of this guy. Like, even without hearing any other stories, just hearing that somebody won 6 Olympics back to back shows me someone who is a demigod.
Yes. Whether the stories are true or not, which most of them are obviously, definitely have something of the fable about them. Whether they're true or not, the fact that people believed and spread these stories speaks to the legend of the man.
Right.
One story that may very well be true was that him and a bunch of his buddies were hanging out in an old shepherd's shack, drinking and having a good time and hanging out. And the central beam cracks and comes falling in on them.
Oh, dang.
He jumps up, grabs it, and holds it on his shoulders while all of his drunken friends scurry out the front door.
At least as best as drunken friends can.
As drunken friends do, before skittering away and letting it collapse.
Nice.
Other things that he would do to try to get the crowd involved was he had this trick, and apparently, I don't know if he was using 2 hands or if he just had a really giant hand, is that he would take a pomegranate and he would put it in the palm of his hand and invite the crowd to take it from him. Right? By any means necessary, try to get this pomegranate.
I have heard a variation of this story.
Tell me.
You could either try to get it away from him, or you could try to break the pomegranate. If you could even get it to burst at all and let out any juice. So not only did you have people trying to pry his hands apart, but you also had people hammering on the outside of his hands trying to get him to crush the pomegranate.
Yep. And when he was done, he would open his hand and you would have an unbruised pomegranate there as an offering to Hera.
Really?
Yeah, pomegranate was the fruit of Hera, it turns out.
I never even thought about the gods having patron fruits.
So yeah, he would take the thing and let people try, and that was kind of his offering was this is for you, Hera.
An unbruised
when he was done, he would
pomegranate.
have this unbruised pomegranate as an offering to Hera. He liked to stand on a discus and invite groups of people to try to push him off.
See, that one's harder to believe for physics.
The discuses that they used were bigger than we use, but you're still talking like dinner plate size, not we're not talking like a sled, like those little circular sleds that you get at Walmart. We're not talking that big. We're talking dinner plate or smaller.
Yeah. That one's harder to believe.
Harder to believe.
Especially since, like, strength doesn't change your center of balance.
Mass helps.
Mass helps,
and
certainly.
It seems like he was real big. So, he wins 6 Olympics in a row. He comes back for a 7th. And he goes against a much younger opponent. Remember, he is in his 40s at this point.
That's old man.
Remember,
in those
started
times.
started between 17 and 20. This is his 7th Olympic Games. He comes back, makes it all the way to the end, and loses in the finals against a much younger opponent who is using a revolutionary new style of wrestling that he'd never seen before. It was a long Greek name that I cannot remember and did not write down.
Fair enough.
But he wrestles this guy at the finals. He loses. The younger kid gets the throws. Milo is defeated for the first time in 24 years. The crowd swarms the ring, ignoring the victor.
To greet their new champion?
No. To congratulate Milo. They throw Milo onto their shoulders and carry him out of the ring.
See, once again, I don't believe the story.
Remember, it had to be the other athletes. Because remember, real big dude.
Yeah, this guy must have been a
Throw him onto
giant.
their shoulders and carry him away, leaving their new Olympic champion all alone. To celebrate his win.
That's the jerk who beat up Milo.
So, you mentioned in preparing for this that you had a Milo story you wanted to pitch in.
Oh, I just loved that because I'd heard some of his Olympic stories.
Yes.
More just kind of the hard facts, right? And the pomegranate story. I always heard it was one hand, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Which... I wonder. Because a guy that big, like you think Andre the Giant.
Yes.
Right? Because he had to have been someone like that, right? An aberration, right? To have been that competitive in a sport that brutal for that long, he must have been something different.
Fair.
And so, yeah, I think of Andre the Giant, and yeah, you could just about clasp a pomegranate in a hand that big. That's how I'm picturing this guy. So yeah, I'd almost believe that. And then there was this legend. And what I didn't know, and what I ran into a little bit of research almost accidentally, was his military career.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he actually fought for Croton, or Croton, however you say it. Except for he didn't go with all the armor and everything. He went with loincloth, a lion's mane, supposedly from a lion he had strangled to death with his bare hands.
As one does.
In an age of spears and shield walls and things like that, he came with a club. Put all that together, and what do you got?
Hercules.
Heck yeah, you got Hercules.
Or Heracles, rather.
Or Heracles, yes, it was the Greeks. But yes, absolutely embrace that I am Heracles, and apparently pulled it off pretty well.
Do you know the rest of the story?
Tell me.
So it was against, so Croton was actually a Greek colony in southern Italy. And they were fighting another Greek colony, Sybaris. And they were outnumbered 3-1. So they get their phalanxes up and are marching towards each other. And out comes Milo, who everybody knows about. He's very famous. Everyone's heard the stories.
And he comes out dressed
He
as
comes
Hercules.
out dressed like Hercules and charges. The Sabarians panic
I would.
and scatter. Nobody dies.
Wow.
The Sabarians sue for peace. Milo wins the day without shedding a drop of blood. Everyone is so panicked at the sight of him. And you know what? I don't blame them.
No. No.
I know, like, a shield wall is supposed to, trust the man on your right or whatever.
Oh, yeah, the Phalanx depended on morale.
Yes.
Right? You absolutely had to believe that if you held your place, you were going to be okay.
But if he's coming right at you...
Hey, I'm supposed to stick that guy with a spear? He's going to be mad at me. By the way, we have a beautiful comment in the chat here from Cad Harker. Andre the Giant used to put his hand over Buttercup's head like a hat to keep her warm. The pomegranate doesn't seem like much of a stretch. Buttercup from The Princess Bride, the movie, where he played a giant. And yeah, I said, I believe the pomegranate story. I honestly believe it was one hand.
Okay.
I think he could pull that off.
Now, it wouldn't be one of my stories
If it didn't end in death.
if it didn't end in death and horror.
These are all dead athletes, so
These are all dead athletes.
it tracks.
Some of them die in happier circumstances than others. Let's talk about the death of Milo.
Not happy.
He is going from Croton to a neighboring village. And he decides, I don't need no main road. I'm going to go straight through the forest. Because I fear neither man nor beast.
Maybe you should, Milo.
He comes upon a tree trunk that some woodsmen have cut down and started to split, but have abandoned and left there. So it's a tree trunk, and it's kind of half split open with these wedges driven down into it.
To help keep it separate, help them keep
Yes.
the division they've got so far.
Exactly. So he comes up, and I have been around strong men. I know how they think. This completely checks out. He looks at it and thinks, I bet I could break it in half. I bet I could do it. So he grabs this thing, lifts it up, and I can perfectly imagine how this works. He rolls it over, picks it up, digs his hands in, pulls with all his might, actually gets it to separate a little bit, and the wedges drop out. He loses strength, and it snaps shut on his hands. And he is now trapped with both hands inside of this great big tree trunk.
By the way, the version story I heard, it wasn't separate from the ground, so this was a tree trunk in the ground, so he would now be pinned in position. He was trying to rip apart the tree trunk in the ground.
Why would someone be trying to split a tree that's still in the ground?
To get it clear. It's a land clearing technique.
You split the tree from like the top down?
You split, then you can essentially kind of like pull it out, right? And then you pull it out by pieces
Interesting.
to get the roots out.
So in the time that we've been talking, Milo is sitting there very patiently when the wolves come and he is devoured. People come and find his carcass, and everyone but him lives happily ever after.
Yep.
Man, I wish I had a happier ending than that.
Yeah. We could have just ended it earlier.
We could have, but that's not really my style, apparently.
Nope. All the way.
So that's Milo.
All right. So I dare say we could probably set him up as one of, if not the greatest Olympian of the ancient age.
Yes.
Like, 6, that is almost unfathomable.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about someone completely different. Let's talk about movie stars.
If you say so.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about Errol Flynn.
Okay. Errol Flynn, Captain Blood.
Yeah, there
The
you go.
Adventures of Robin Hood.
Straight on.
Famous swashbuckler of the early. I think he started in silent films and made the transition to voice.
Yep.
Okay.
He was just the epitome of the dashing, handsome movie star. Really kind of helped shape that mold of the handsome movie star.
Yeah.
And was just dashing.
Did his own sword fighting, as I understand it.
Right, all that. Very, very proud of himself.
Yeah.
Okay. And so one day he is, you're going to love this, by the way. He is filming a movie called They Died With Their Boots On, a film commemorating Custer's last stand. Okay.
Wow,
And he
okay.
is playing Custer. Right?
Okay.
He looks over.
This all feels very weird in 2021, doesn't it?
Oh, it does.
Different time,
But
I
this
guess.
is going to go down some weird streets here. So
All
Errol
right.
Flynn playing Custer, just having the time of his life, being a handsome, rich movie star. And a little bit arrogant, right? A little bit vain. And he looks over and he sees one of the extras. Right? Not a co-star or anything, just one of the native extras.
Okay.
Right? And this guy picks up a 12-pound sledgehammer by the handle, holds it straight out, brings it back, touches it to his nose, and puts it back. And Errol Flynn's like, cool, let me try. Brings it back, can't control it. It hits him in the head, giving him a big old bruise. And so he feels like his honor has been slighted. Well, it only gets better, Mike. Keep with me here.
I have thoughts.
He goes and finds this extra in this little cafe right outside
Okay.
and goes and takes a swing at him.
Oh boy.
This movie extra easily dodges his punch and lays him out flat at a single blow.
Well, yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay.
That movie extra, Jim Thorpe.
Yay!
Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, that no-name extra that nobody recognized was none other than Jim Thorpe, just trying to make a few extra bucks playing a native in one of these, moving pictures.
Because Jim Thorpe was Native American, right?
He was absolutely. He was of the Sac and Fox tribe, native to Oklahoma. His native name was Wathohook. I apologize for that. Being translated either as bright path or
Okay.
the light that comes after lightning.
Bright path. So like the little
I think so.
the okay, bright
Yeah.
path. The burned out streak that lightning leaves in your vision.
Yes.
That is a heck of a name.
Right?
It's a lot to live up to.
Right? So let's talk about, let's go back to the beginning. I just couldn't resist the Errol Flynn story.
Okay, I have questions. First, I know the name Jim Thorpe. I know a couple of stories, but he's a runner, right?
Well,
Okay.
this is where it gets a little weird. We absolutely have to go back to the beginning. Okay? And I'm warning you right now, this is going to be a roller coaster.
Okay.
There's no way around this. This is going to be a roller coaster. All right? So, we have young Jim Thorpe,
Mm-hmm.
who was born in Oklahoma.
Okay.
His father, who everyone kind of agrees was sort of a rough man. Everybody was afraid of him except for Jim.
Mm-hmm.
But his father believed that his son should get an education, right?
Good.
Believed in schooling.
I agree with that.
And so he would load him up in his buggy and drive him 20-something miles to the school where he was supposed to stay and get an education. Oftentimes, by the time the father got back with the buggy, Jim was already back home, having run home ahead of the horses.
Okay.
And so the father started taking him to schools farther away. I think at one point he took him to a school 200 miles away from home. And when Jim's twin brother died, Charlie, very sad. In fact, he often said that his strength came because he had absorbed the spirit of his brother, had the strength of his brother. There's our first little dip on this roller coaster.
Yeah, I felt it.
He went home, like 200 miles, just went there,
Just
on foot.
Up and ran home.
Yep, wanted to be home, and so he went home. And so this was kind of the beginning, and he ends up at the Carlisle School. This begins our first little bit of the world Jim was growing up in. Because the founder of the Carlisle School, one of their mottos was, "Kill the Indian within, save the man."
Ooh.
This was an institution, all these schools were really, they were an institution designed to eliminate and crush any sort of native culture, right?
Great.
Those that were left over from the Indian Wars, we wanted to assimilate, right?
Great.
It
What
gets ugly.
year are we talking, more or less?
All right, so this
When
would
are
have
we?
been right around the turn of the century, so around like 1900,
Okay.
right? Give or take, in that era.
Okay.
Pretty bad. Anyway, and one day he's hanging out in like overalls, work boots, and he sees some seniors doing high jump, right? And this was before, by the way, they did the whole like back thing or thing. It was just like how high you could just, right? Jump over. And they're not making it. And he says, "I want to try." And they're like, "Go for it." And so he goes and he jumps it, clears it with ease. They said there was like 2 or 3 inches between his feet and the thing. And the next morning he's called in to meet with Pop Warner. The Pop Warner. Like Pop Warner
like-
Little League?
Yeah.
Named after that guy.
Whose name was Pop?
That's what everybody called him. He may have had another name once, but I've never run into any other name but Pop Warner. I didn't research him. I was researching Jim. He might have had another name, but I've never seen him referred to in at least the records I was reading as anything other than Pop Warner.
Okay.
And he calls him in. And Jim's like, "Did I do something wrong?" He's like, "You just broke the school record is all." This was the highest anyone had ever jumped. And he had cleared it with great ease. And so Pop Warner says, "Okay, now I've got my track star." But then Jim discovers football and wants to play football. And Pop says, no. Right? I don't want to lose my track star. Don't play football. But Jim keeps at it.
Okay. What Pop Warner has some connection to this Indian school?
He was the coach.
place?
He was the coach for Carlisle.
At this like cultural genocide school.
Yes. It's weird.
Okay.
Because on the one hand, it was definitely set up to dismantle any native culture. But it was also an Indian school.
okay.
Right? It was almost entirely peopled by natives, and like there was also a little bit of pride in that school by the natives themselves. Right?
All right.
So like
All
sure,
right.
it's not optimal, but
It's not
it is
great.
ours.
Okay.
Right? In fact, Jim even passes up some fairly lucrative possibilities to go back and play for Carlisle. Right? So there
Okay.
is a lot of loyalty here to the school and to Pop Warner. I brought up the whole Carlisle thing just to kind of set the stage of how his people were viewed.
Yeah, we're living in a rough time.
Yeah.
But and the situation with the school is complicated as real life tends to be. All right.
Yes.
All right. I'm on board. We want to play football now.
We want to play football. Coach says no. Jim keeps going for it. So the coach finally says, fine. I think he was just trying to break his spirit a little bit, right? Just talk him out of it. Says,
Like great coaches do.
Like great coaches do. He says, all right, we will let you be tackling practice for them. Right?
Ugh.
We'll let you help out with practice by letting these big, angry people tackle you. No one could. Nobody could tackle Jim. They could not get him off his feet. And that is when Pop Warner started to really realize what he had here. This was something else.
Okay.
Right? This was... Oh, somebody found it. Thank you, Internet, and thank you, Cat Harker. Glenn Scobie Warner. At one point had more wins than any college football coach.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
Glenn Scobie, huh?
Glenn Scobie.
I
By the
guess
way,
I'd probably go by Pop, too.
whole lot of those wins, Jim Thorpe.
Just hand him the ball, have him walk to the end zone.
One of the first people ever at that school to rush over 2,000 yards.
Holy smokes.
Got multiple touchdowns every game. And most notably, when he left, they stopped winning.
Dang it.
And when he came back, they started winning again. With Jim Thorpe winning, without Jim Thorpe, no winning. So...
Dang it.
Yeah, a lot of Pop Warner's thing was Jim Thorpe.
Was
Okay.
give Jim the ball.
Now, let's fast forward to the Olympics. He is considered by many, including myself, to be the greatest Olympian ever. He shows up
In modern times.
in modern times. Right?
'Cause
I don't
it's
think
kinda
he
hard
could
to
have
compare.
out-wrestled Milo. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't compare ancient Olympics with modern Olympics.
Yeah.
But yes, greatest modern Olympian ever.
Okay.
Sorry, there's more garbage. We're going to get to it.
You've made a compelling case so far, and he hasn't even gone to the Olympics yet.
Right. So, he goes and he competes, and he wins the pentathlon.
Okay.
Okay? In fact, gets first in 4 out of the 5 events.
Wow. Okay.
So, you said, was he just a runner? No.
Now, what all is in the pentathlon?
I tried to find it. I couldn't. Because the pentathlon is no longer run.
Okay. But it's like, running, jumping.
Yes. I believe there's a long jump, high jump, 1,500. I think a 100-meter dash. Again, the internet might have to help me out here. I don't know if the 1912 pentathlon was the same as modern pentathlons, especially
Okay.
since the pentathlon as an Olympic event was phased out.
Right.
But then he goes, so he's already done the pentathlon
Okay.
and won gold.
Well done.
He then goes to do the decathlon. This was not something that was done. Okay.
Well, because the decathlon also includes, like, throwing and stuff, doesn't it?
Yes, decathlon is all the things. By tradition, it is generally believed that whoever wins the decathlon is the greatest athlete in the world, because this is someone who can do everything. This is throwing, this is jumping, this is pole vault, this is running, fast running, distance running, like
All of the above.
All of the above. And he goes to compete in the decathlon. His shoes are gone. Pop wanted, like, someone stole his shoes.
Someone stole his shoes.
Someone stole his shoes.
Now, was this... Now, there may not be an answer to this, but was this sabotage?
I believe so. I absolutely believe so.
Okay.
One thing about Jim was that everybody said was he was incredibly trusting. This was an innocent soul. He probably didn't even look after things, and yeah, almost undoubtedly.
Wasn't putting padlocks on his equipment bag.
No, he was not. And for reasons that exist, he was not welcome.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I figured we were going to run across that eventually.
Yeah. In fact, let's deal with one right now. He was there representing the United States, even though he was not a United States citizen.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Okay. Please explain.
All American, not American.
What? Oh,
Because
please
of some
explain.
stuff with the Spanish-American War, during the time he was born, Oklahoma, for like the weird place where he was born, was actually belonged to Russia.
I'm
just
sorry,
kidding.
did
I'm
you
messing
say-
with you? I am absolutely messing with you. No, it's because of horrible racial garbage.
Okay.
Wow. Wouldn't that have been more fun?
We
if
have
it-
had. Honestly, it wouldn't have been the craziest twist we've had on this show. So,
No.
okay, well.
Now the real reason.
Great.
Have you brushed up on your constitutional law recently?
No.
Okay. The 14th Amendment officially abolished slavery.
Okay.
Okay. And was supposed to grant the former slaves and everybody full citizenship.
Okay.
Okay.
On board with that.
Right. All good.
That is the official stance of
Yes.
Word of the Day.
Yes. Amazing. Crazy thing is, it really wasn't working. Okay. There were already all these things coming up. And so 2 years later, they had to pass the 15th Amendment, which says you cannot deny the right to vote to any citizen based on color, race, da-da-da-da-da.
Oh, no.
Right? Are you seeing this coming?
Ugh.
Which gave blacks the right to vote. And there were many people who fought for that. But turns out, even those abolitionists were not ready to have natives vote. But we just passed this thing that said all citizens have to be given the right to vote. And so they're not citizens. Yeah.
Fine.
Here.
Fine.
Let me read a quote from you, for you.
Not from me.
Not from you. For you. From Michigan Senator Jacob Howard around the time.
This is going to hurt my soul, isn't it?
So bad. I am not yet prepared to pass a sweeping act of naturalization by which all the Indian savages, wild or tame, belonging to a tribal relation are to become my fellow citizens and go to the polls and vote with me.
Wild or tame?
Wild or tame. These were things said by an actual senator. A United States senator said those words out loud to other senators. And that was from Michigan, right? This wasn't like from the South or whatever. Like, this was Michigan. It hurt real bad.
Ugh.
So yes, Jim Thorpe, representing the United States, was not an American citizen. Yep.
Ugh.
Yep. In fact, let's just hurt you more as long as we got you here.
Sure.
The 15th Amendment granted all citizens voting rights. I believe that was passed in 1870, or ratified in 1870, I believe February. Guess when the last state caved and gave natives the right to vote? Oh, and guess which state it was?
I don't want to. I'm going to guess. I'm going to guess the 1970s.
It was 1964, not bad.
Oh. Ha
I mean, horrible. It was very bad, but his guess was good.
All right, 1964, and I'm going to say, I'm going to say Oklahoma.
Utah.
No.
We're from Utah.
Oh, come on. But okay, I
don't know why. I need to do some research. I am not proud of that. Yeah. I don't know what kind of garbage was going on there, but yep.
Utah,
so it was almost of all places. I know.
My high school was like 20% Native American, something like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm upset.
Yeah, from the chat, we had the first women voters. It was ironic that the territory actually had women's suffrage taken away when we joined the Union. We already had.
Utah has such a.
I know.
I mean,
I guess it didn't stick. So that's just horribly depressing. We must move on.
I think we gotta keep rolling.
We must move on.
Or I'm just gonna sit here stammering and fuming until our time runs out.
It was real bad. And let's keep going. So, Jim Thorpe, not an American citizen, already won the pentathlon, had his shoes stolen, finds new shoes in the garbage. They are not even his size. They do not even match. He found two separate shoes, two different garbage shoes, stuffed tissue in them to make them stay on his feet, and won the decathlon, setting records that stood for, I think, over 36 years, a lot of them. Some of them are only kind of matched today, I believe. Let's see here. Talking about the 1500 meter, that was the last one. So after he'd done all this around the 1500 meter, no Olympic decathlete, in fact, could beat Thorpe's time until 1972.
Holy smokes.
And even today's reigning gold medalist in the decathlon, Brian Clay, could beat Thorpe by only a second.
Okay, so one definitively.
Yes, one definitively, and many people believe for all time, because even if you had like specialists who could beat him at some particular event, nobody ever matched his breadth of skill. And that was with him pretty much losing the javelin because he'd never thrown a javelin before. And only placing like, I don't know, third in the pole vault because he'd never pole vaulted before.
Wow.
So
that's not the sort of thing that you can pick up intuitively.
No.
As far as I know, I've never tried pole vault either.
Right, but this is one of the reasons.
Maybe I could be an Olympic medalist in it.
I have tried pole vault. You cannot. It is counterintuitive.
You think a 300-pound strength athlete would have a hard time at the pole vault?
I think anyone would have a hard time with a pole vault. It is not natural.
Well, I happen to know a story where that's not the case.
But yes, these are some of the reasons why Jim Thorpe was considered in many ways to be the greatest athlete of the modern era. Not just at one thing, but at a wide variety of things, right? Even things he hadn't done before. So, he wins. The king comes and bestows the medals upon him and tells him, you are the greatest athlete in the world.
The king of the Olympics? What king are we talking about?
The king of Sweden.
King of Sweden. Cool.
I believe the 1912 Olympics were in Stockholm, Sweden.
Awesome.
So we went there, and King Gustafsson? I'm not confident in that at all. Somebody's going to have to look that one up.
King of Sweden.
King of Sweden comes and presents the medals to him and tells him, you are the greatest athlete in the world. To which Jim responds, thanks, King.
So, impromptu speaking, not part of the decathlon, turns out.
Nope. He has always been quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And he's always been reclusive, bordering on shy.
Mm-hmm.
This actually doesn't really help him because, he doesn't really form connections with all these other Olympians and things like that. He just kind of goes back to his room.
He's
right?
not networking and
He's not
getting
networking. He's not
sponsors
going to the
and
parties. Yeah.
He's there to run.
Yeah, he came out of his room,
Run,
went and
jump,
ran,
throw.
and, run, jump, throw, and then came back. And yeah, thanks, King.
Thanks, King, for this lovely pair of shoes I found in the trash.
Yep. Nope. Just thanks, King. And that was his whole Olympic speech. In fact, I've seen some reports that just cut out the King and just say thanks.
It could have been much worse.
It could have been much worse. Now let's make it much, much worse.
Oh.
He goes back.
But we're on such a triumphant note.
I know, but we do kind of have to deal with this because it's not really done yet.
I'm sorry. You're talking about the 1912 Olympics.
Uh-huh.
Something real bad is going to happen, isn't it?
Yep. Oh, man, I just realized I missed a quote. Anyway, so he goes back and starts playing football and baseball and even basketball and is just generally the best at everything he ever does.
Cool.
And is generally recognized as the best athlete in the world. Right?
Awesome.
For a short period of time because, again, he doesn't really self-promote. And then it is discovered as he's playing college football. By the way, he lettered in 11 sports.
Holy
in his
smokes.
university.
That's
I don't
a lot
know.
of sports.
If someone said name 11 sports, it would take me a moment.
Yeah.
So lettered in 11 sports. But then...
Because track and field only counts as one, right?
I believe so. But then a dark bit of past comes up. Because to play football on the college level, you must be an amateur. You cannot have ever received money to have played a sport.
This
is about to get real bad. Sorry,
Great.
this is about to get real bad.
Great.
And it comes to light that back in his Carlisle days, during the summer, he and some of his buddies would go and play baseball, and players sometimes got paid a little bit. Now, this is nothing like professional baseball today. The games often didn't even finish. There were, often
I think
brawls,
that's the best
mismatched
kind of baseball
uniforms. So it was a farce. And most of the players were playing under assumed names anyways, right? So they could still play as amateurs. Jim didn't. He just didn't have that guile. So it comes to light that he had received money for playing baseball.
Well, yeah, you gotta pay for medical bills after the fight.
All of a sudden, no one can get clear of Jim fast enough.
Okay.
This is probably the biggest black mark in my mind on Pop Warner's legacy is he throws Jim immediately under the bus.
Great.
Goes and has Jim sign something saying that Pop Warner and the program and the college and everything knew nothing about it. And it was just purely Jim.
See, I'm immediately suspicious of anyone named Pop.
Yeah. And Jim signs it to take the
Because
heat off
the
his
coach
friends.
that he trusts asks him to.
Yeah, it was a betrayal.
Yuck.
And now it gets back to the Olympic Committee.
Okay.
And if you thought college sports was all uptight about amateur status, they got nothing on the Olympic Committee, who take away his gold medals, and he becomes the first person to have their name removed from the Olympic records. Not even an asterisk or anything. Actually, they straight up purge him from history. And he writes a letter saying, I didn't know, right? And he actually says, and this was, again, the guy just had no guile, right?
Yeah.
And he puts down at the bottom of letter, like, I hope there can be some forgiveness here because I'm just a poor Indian boy. Worst possible thing he could have said. Because amateur meant something different.
I'm sorry. Please explain.
So, we know that an amateur is someone who plays a sport not for money,
Okay.
right? And it has generally been believed in the noble history of sports that this is, the purest form of sport. These are people playing for the love of the game and for nothing else, right?
Right.
That is the spirit of an amateur.
Okay.
Thing is, there was another level to this, especially with the Olympics, especially around 1912. Because who could do that? Who could just go and play sports for the fun of it, for the love of the sport, and didn't have to worry about money?
The bourgeoisie.
The bourgeoisie, that's who. Absolutely.
Oh no.
You just got it.
Oh no.
There it is.
They think that he's a communist.
No.
Okay.
Worse, they think he's poor.
Woo. They think he. Oh well, that. Now I am a communist. They just think he's poor.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. He's riffraff. He's scum, man. No name, no money, no title. Playing baseball for money like some sort of hooligan or ruffian. We always knew there was something wrong about that guy. Let's get him right off our records, man.
That he's a Bolshevik or whatever. At least let it be some kind of political fear storm or whatever. But just that he's poor.
Just that he's poor. Yep. The Olympics were, at that time, in many ways, a gentleman's game. An amateur, here's your connection, an amateur was a gentleman. Someone of refinement and stature and money.
And these are all college athletes.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
And so they absolutely shred him. And yeah, when he sends his protest letter that I didn't know, and could you give me a break? There's no way I could have known. I'm just a poor Indian boy.
I didn't know I'm poor and uneducated.
Worst possible thing he could have said to these. Boy, we don't use profanity on this show. But these snobby bastards? I'm sorry.
I would have used an even harsher word, so we'll go with that. Wow. Ew.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I could have made it more political and everything. No, he was poor.
Dang it.
And yeah, we can't have that. By the way, he was largely just erased. And he stopped being the greatest in the world to the point where, Errol Flynn just saw him as some random extra in a movie and tried to
laid out for it.
Laid out. By the way, I have to tell you what Jim Thorpe said after he punched him out. Because remember, he's dressed as one of the natives at the Battle of Little Bighorn.
I'm very
Errol
excited.
Flynn was dressed as Custer, knocks him out, stands over him and says, "Custer's crap is still weak."
Yeah!
Oh, man.
Get some, Jim!
Dang
it.
Now,
Dang it.
so, now,
I like this.
let me tell you.
I like so much about this story, but I'm also very upset. Please continue.
Yes, like I said, roller coaster. I warned you. There's one more piece. Okay? Because in 1982, after a round of protests and uprising and everything, the Olympic Committee restored his gold medals to his surviving children.
Yeah, because he would have been like 100 at that point or something.
Yeah, he would have been dead. And he did die. Heart attack, I believe.
Bummer.
However, unless this has changed from the sources I was reading, which I don't think it has, they restored his gold medals, not his records.
What?
His times are still left off of Olympic history.
So, so they just give the medals back, but not any of the...
It was a PR stunt, and it was garbage.
So here's the medals, but we won't tell you what they were for. It's a secret.
I mean, sure, like here's the gold medal for the pentathlon and the decathlon in the 1912, but yeah, his times, his records, everything
I hate it.
still left off, supposedly to this day.
I
Like right
hate
now,
it.
official Olympic record, Jim Who.
Olympics? Got my eye on you, guys.
Oh,
Shame.
shame
on you all.
Shame.
Dang.
Anyways, and yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it there. He was always the best physically. The rest of his life was just kind of a regular messy life, right? He was married a few times, had I think 8 children. Bunch of his children, by the way, never even knew that he was an Olympian. Right? He never even made a big deal about it. He just said, I knew I won them. They know I won them. Right? But he just lived his life, right? He did some acting, played a little bit of pro ball. He was actually the first president of the organization that became the NFL.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
And so, yeah, he just kind of did odd things. You know, was an actor for a while, just an extra mostly. But yeah.
So if I went digging through old movies, there might be the greatest athlete of the modern era
Just
in
randomly,
the background
was that Jim
somewhere.
Thorpe? Yes, absolutely.
Probably in some fairly inappropriate costume.
Yeah, and he actually fought for the rights of other natives in the film industry because they were generally paid a half to an eighth of what white extras were paid, depending on what they were actually doing. And he fought and actually won a lot of those battles. So yeah, no, he continued to fight for recognition of native peoples and was an excellent example himself. In fact, a lot of his father's thing, sending him off, was like, show him what we can do. So yeah, all good
man,
stuff.
Jim.
That was Jim Thorpe. I
Good
said,
man,
kind of a
Jim.
messy life. There were things, but just kind of regular mortality stuff. He was a good guy.
All right. Do we want to try to cram in a couple more stories, or should we?
Okay.
Yeah,
All
we're gonna
right.
wrap it up.
I'm afraid that is all the time we have for tonight.
Being more disciplined about the whole time thing these days.
However,
Though
we have...
it saddens me.
Yes. We will actually record more, but that's going to go on our Patreon. And thank you to all those who support us on there. We are deeply, deeply appreciative. Next week, it is going to be Author's Corner. And that is actually going to be on Wednesday instead of Thursday. My daughter has a school play. So we're going to be doing it on Wednesday, 6:30, not Thursday. Mark your calendars. And it's going to be Kira Dominguez, sorry if I mispronounced, who will be joining us. So feel free to look her up, do some research in the meantime, and we'll be doing that on Author's Corner. Mike is going to be back in 2 weeks when we'll be discussing the history or epic equines. We're going to do horses in history, and I am incredibly excited about that one. And so, yeah, thank you all. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Night, everybody.